Good day, everyone. I'm your host, James Hicks from HicksNewMedia. Welcome to Perspectives in Focus, where we highlight the people, the industries, and ideas and the technology that are making positive strides within society. Today, my guest is Mr. Steve Worthy, a fan, a friend of the show, of the channel, of the environment. And look, Steve has been around, and I'm glad to have him back. This man is a seasoned business leader with over 2 decades of executive retail leadership experience. He is a podcasting veteran. He's been doing podcasting since before it was cool. Listen, back in 2007 with his By Husbands for Husbands, a podcast and business focused on helping entrepreneurial husbands succeed professionally and personally by balancing work and family. He's the founder of Worthy Retail U, where he assists retail leaders in growing and honing their skills to maximize their career and their journey, and also as the CEO and primary coach at Podcasters Live. Steve strives to help content creators increase their discoverability, grow their community and influence, and monetize their brand through the use of podcasting. That's a mouthful. This man is doing all the work. But what we're going to talk about tonight is his journey. We're going to talk about what he's learned up until this point, up until 2022, what skills, what processes, what maybe shifts and paradigm dynamics he's going to take into the coming year, and making sure that he stays locked in and focused on the goal. If you got a question, y'all know how to do it, but let's bring on Steve Worthy.
Here we
Dr.
go,
Worthy.
man.
Let me call
Yo,
him Dr. Worthy.
I'm back here dancing, man. I was like, that's a new song, and it wasn't one of the songs that you stole from me because you
See,
always
there,
steal
there
my.
we're gonna start like
You,
that.
I'm gonna
We've been
start.
live for 2 minutes,
I'm gonna start right there.
oh my god, folks, I can see it's gonna be that kind of show. I'm gonna throw my notes away because we just gonna cut it up here because family is in the
Yeah,
building.
already.
Steve,
I
how you
got some
doing,
fun
sir?
tonight, man. I'm doing extremely well, man. I'm so blessed, man. Like words can't describe kind of where I'm at right now
Okay.
and where I'm going. So I'm excited to talk about the journey and hopefully not just for my journey's sake, but to hopefully enlighten other people and help
Yeah,
them where they currently are so that they can kind of move forward as well.
I love that, man. I love that. So let's dive into that. But in a second, a lot of my community are similar to your community, right?
Hmm.
Entrepreneurs, content creators, solopreneurs, and things of that nature that are doing different things with new technology. But again, I've got a lot of folks who are part of my community who may not know who you are. So kind of at
Yeah.
that 35,000 foot level, if you don't mind giving your origin story and who is Steve Worthy.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I'm one of those rare, now I won't say rare, but I think there's a lot of people, a lot of us out there that I've actually truly found my trifecta in life, and that is leadership, podcasting, and live streaming. Leadership, first and foremost, is the foundation for everything I do, whether it was from when I started in the military all the way through my 26 plus years as a retail leader, and then that kind of paired its way into podcasting, where I've actually been able to fall in love with this medium, utilize podcasting to help leaders and also podcasters kind of expand kind of their mind, understanding a little bit more about who they are so that they can move forward in their journey. And then with Podcasters Live, we've really focused in on that convergence point between the podcaster and a live streamer, helping live streamers understand the value of podcasting and podcasters understanding the value of live streaming. And so been able to do both. A lot of times people will say niche down and try to just focus in on one thing, but tell you, man, he has a burning desire in my heart for both, and that's what we've been trying to do is do both.
I love that. I mean, and I'm glad you brought that up because it's an interesting combination of products and services and offerings that you have, right? Because again, yeah, you came from one side, one industry, retail leadership, which could be a whole entity in and of itself, right?
Mm,
You could have content for days, you can have coaching, you can have curriculum, you can have you can do a whole lot of things specifically around that, but
yeah.
weaving in again that multiple decades of experience that you have on that side into what's hot today, being podcasting, content creations, and weaving in that discussion and marrying those two. I really don't know if anyone else is really trying or doing that with these two distinct industries. So tell us about your start with
Yeah,
podcasting, because I want to bring it to this point. I know we
yeah.
talked about the podcast you had back in 2007, but tell us how you felt that this was it. This is where I was going to be, as opposed to maybe something like blogging or something. Because a lot of us, even I started back with WordPress and writing the
Mhm.
textual piece. But when did you feel that the audio piece and emoting from that perspective was really where you wanted to be?
It started actually, I used to read the announcements in high school. Always had a pretty decent voice, and so I love that medium from there. But the podcasting piece actually started in 2007, where, like you said, buddy of mine, we started a business initially, and then we turned it actually into a podcast. We didn't know anything about podcasting until someone told us about the medium of it. We were doing what share calls. We talked about podcasting as a it is a produced conversation. We were producing conversations with each other and also with other guests on our show, husbands who were trying to understand how to balance being a husband and a entrepreneur.
Hmm.
And we were just doing those conversations on Blog Talk Radio. And then we finally learned about podcasting, and then we started stripping out the audio, doing RSS feeds and all that other stuff. But we fell in love with the concept of creating a dialogue that someone can have around a very specific idea that will help people move forward. And so that's where my love for podcasting came from, because it fits exactly into my concept of leadership, where the
Okay.
fundamentally leadership is about influence. And so my goal with leadership is to take somebody from where they currently are to where they need to be. So
Mm.
both of those things just mesh perfectly in my world.
I love that, man. And Cher Jones is in the comments right there. She's saying magic always happens when when you two get together.
True,
I don't know if that's true or not. It's still early, Cher, we'll find out.
true
But
indeed.
Worthy has already started acting a fool, pushing a lot of buttons over there. So we'll see how this works out. Uh, I okay. I still want to pick your brain on that.
Yeah,
How so
yeah,
early you were able to dive into that, because with a lot of this new technology, like with live streaming, with blogging, with podcasting. I mean, how did even though you did the announcements early, and yeah, you got the dope
yeah.
voice, right? I mean, just it's a gamble of knowing what's going to resonate, right? If you spend that amount of time into doing something and building that craft, how did you know or feel that it would resonate with the community you were looking to build that early on? Or did you even know it would? Or were you mainly doing it just to do it, right? Were you mainly doing it to tell a story and how you had a platform, you had a medium to share your information? Or were you already at that particular point in 2007 saying, let's monetize this, let's distribute this, let's syndicate this, right? Were you looking at it from that business perspective, or really just as something to do that was pretty cool and we had, again, the infrastructure to push the message out?
Yeah, I think we were doing a little bit of both. I
Mm,
initially, when we first started podcasting, we were both nervous. My buddy, co-host Jerry, and I, until we met Herman Cain actually at an
mm,
event in Atlanta,
mm-hmm,
and he was on the radio at the time, and I actually got to fill in for him a few times on the radio in Atlanta when I lived here previously, and we were nervous about it. And he gave us a piece of advice, and the same advice that I give to a lot of our clients is relative to making sure that you're talking to one, feel like you're talking to one person. Like whatever the concept is, the
mm,
idea that you're trying to get across, feel like make it like you're talking to that one person out there. And then when you start to do that, man, the walls of who you are truly kind of come down relative to being more vulnerable. Because if you and I were at a coffee shop having a conversation, I'm not thinking about anybody else around me. I'm thinking about you and I.
yeah,
And that's the level of intimacy that podcasting and the audio aspect of things have with a person. And so for me, when he said that, it just resonated with me. We took that mindset and we sort of parlayed it into speaking engagements, into
okay,
blogs and all these other things. But that first piece of it, like it settled us, and we were like, dude, we're just talking to people out there like us. and it just started resonating with people. And I think that's one piece of advice early on, if we can give to the audience, is to just understand a little bit more about who you are and who you want to focus in on,
Mhm.
and then settle yourself, and then let the content kind of speak for itself.
I like that statement there of settling yourself, right? Again, let me ask you this as well. Laura Williams, I see you in the building. Appreciate you for joining, my friend, as
Hey,
well.
Laura.
Um, Podcasting piece.
Yeah.
Were you comfortable early on the microphone? Were you comfortable early on articulating your message? Because again, with it just being audio, it's a little more challenging to emote and show emotion, right? You see, I talk with my hands out a lot. A lot of times,
Yeah.
I know
Well,
you're standing right now. Listen, we move and we show kind of that energy and things of that as we're talking. It's a little more challenging to inflect and do all of that with just voice and bring about that emotion. Were you taught that or did you learn that? How did you get your story across to where the recipient would feel as excited about the content matter as you were about it?
yeah, studied, man. I studied a lot of DJs. I
Okay.
studied a lot of, I mean, you and I, we grew up in the Phil Donahue, era.
Old school. Now you see, now
Um,
why you got to date us
yeah,
like that?
I'm
God,
sorry, man. I'm
man,
sorry.
there he go, man.
We grew up in that era of,
Yeah.
the Walter Cronkite's, those guys of the
When
world.
TV went off at midnight. You know?
TV went off in midnight, right? But even at that point in time, I think those individuals and how they interviewed people, how they
Mhm.
connected with people, how they used their voice, even though it was on TV, even though how they used all of their mannerisms, and voice inflection and all those different things, I had to learn some of that stuff because, like you said, I'm being from New York. I speak a lot with my hands,
Yeah.
but with the audio side of it, you have to learn how to inflect, how to how to show joy, when you're actually speaking to somebody. How can you actually tell us, a somber story? What does that sound like? And so learning all of that, and kind of being a student of the audio game and listening to more podcasters, listening to audiobooks, listening to people on the radio, helped me kind of develop the craft. And I firmly believe this too. And Cheryl will say this too. She's I'm super passionate about podcasting when I am. I firmly believe it's a craft. And I
Yeah.
think someone who is trying to go after this, they actually have to treat it in that manner. And then that way you will actually have a better product if you learn a little bit more about the craft and how that will impact you and your podcast as well.
Man. Listen, folks, if you don't have a pen and paper right now, I'm gonna pause for a minute because Worthy is over here
Pause for the
dropping.
cause.
You know, he over
Amen.
here telling it like a TI is. Because really, that context, and I appreciate you going into that into that dialogue there. That really sets you up really as the subject matter expert. That sets you up as the trusted advisor. That makes it sense for folks to reach out to Podcasters Live and utilize you as that primary coach of how to do this the right way. Right.
Mm,
Again, podcasting has been around for a long period of time. It was cool back in the day, then it kind of fell off for whatever reason.
yeah,
A lot of us were
yeah.
doing, and now what's old is new again. Folks are getting back into it because the value of the message, the value of the spoken word just makes sense and resonates, especially for folks that are looking at sharing content, sharing stories as a business. Yeah, we can all do
Correct.
this. We can all do this
100%.
as a side hustle, as just something fun to do as a hobby. But when you're really trying to move decisions, when you're really trying to change thought patterns and things of that nature, you got to know how to work the infrastructure as well, and you have to know how
Mm,
to articulate the message to actually move folks into action. So there's my come on now. I'm plugging podcasters
you
live here.
listen
Somebody
to me,
better say
man. And
something.
yeah, I'm tell you, we here's the thing too that I've learned to understand with the idea around podcasting. Part of my bent, of course, has always been about leadership. And so when I think about the idea of retail leadership with Steve Worthy, one of our podcasts that we have, you'll see on the board behind me, is that everything that we do, I can see Susie, who I'm talking to, when I talk about the law of connection, and Susie is struggling with connecting with her team because she is the youngest district manager, and everybody that she leads is twice her age, and she's struggling on how to figure out that process. I am literally speaking to Jim Jim, who is having an issue communicating to his team because he's coming across like a bull in the china shop. He
Mm,
has all the skills, he has all the skills in the world, but he doesn't really know how to slow himself down because he can see things before they happen. So when I'm doing my retail leadership podcast, I am literally speaking to those individuals because I know those people because I have been those people.
right.
And the same thing when it comes to podcasting. When we start talking about imposter syndrome, we little turn of phrase there.
Yeah.
I've dealt with that as well, and so we all the things that I talk about, I have dealt with, and I know people who have dealt with them, and we've helped them kind of go through that stuff as well. So the idea and the medium of podcasting
Mm.
is something it's almost therapeutic in a sense, one for me, and I think for a lot of other people that are out there as well.
Define that impodcaster syndrome.
Yeah,
Define
and
that for me. That's a mouthful as well. I assume what I know, but again, I don't want to assume. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, in podcaster syndrome, it is that feeling that it doesn't matter what you do from a podcasting standpoint, to some degree, you feel that it's just not good enough. You feel
Mm,
that your voice isn't good enough. You feel that your content isn't good enough. You feel that no one's out there listening because whatever it is that you're trying to say, oh my gosh, should I have phrased it this way? Well, maybe if I branch out and my message is bigger and I don't niche down, then people will listen. It is that feeling almost of inferiority that a lot of podcasters they either from the very beginning when they before they even start or even some seasoned podcasters have actually started to feel this way, which leads into pod fade, that
mhm.
concept of where people will fall off the mark from actually producing content, whether it's from mismanaged expectations or it's the idea that no one's out there listening to them anymore and they become irrelevant. And so we try to help them focus in on the the disbelief side of that, understanding the lie that that's what you're telling yourself.
Mm,
That
okay.
may not necessarily be true, but the lie side of it, you starting to believe it. So we help them go through this framework to help them come out on the other side of that.
I love that. So let's bring value to the audience right now who's logged in, and we are live on LinkedIn as well. I typically don't go on LinkedIn, but I figured Mr. Worthy is here, so let's go and bring in the business side too. Let's
Yeah.
bring value, and if you have one or two key takeaways or key steps to help folks with that podcaster syndrome to help avoid, alleviate, or minimize pod fade as well. Would what would someone
Mm.
pay Steve Worthy Retail You Podcasters Live for not for the entire stuff, not for the entire course, but give him just a little bit, like like a crack dealer or something. Just give him a little bit.
Just a little, just
You wouldn't get that statement at another
I'll give
podcast. You get that from me, but you wouldn't get that. Just give him a little something, right?
a little sample,
Just give him a
a
dime
little
bag or something.
sample.
Oh, listen, okay, hold on. Just
Here.
give him a little something of concrete steps, best practices to again alleviate that impodcaster syndrome and pod fade.
Yeah. So I'll put it to you in this context, and this is how we coach. It's very simple. It's in a gap analysis in that context of what we focus in on is your current state. Where are you currently at in your life, in your podcast, whether it's leadership or as a podcast or as a podcaster? The premise is the same. It's understanding where you are, where are your values, what do you stand for? And then once we have a better understanding of that, and you have a better understanding of that, then we can truly focus in on your ideal state, where it is that you actually want to go. Because you don't know where you want to go until you understand where you currently are. The tendency is that everybody wants to go somewhere, but they don't know where they are. And so we help focus on that. And that's that settling, right? We talked about that earlier. That's
Hmm.
that settling of yourself first. Once you can settle a little bit of yourself, now you can actually see a little more clearly where it is that you need to go. The hardest part is that gap analysis, or is that gap of understanding your current state to your ideal state. That's where we focus in on your leadership skills, your communication. With from a podcasting standpoint, it's focusing on your content pillars, focusing in on your voice. not just
Hmm.
your physical voice, but your actual voice, what it is that you actually want to sound like and say to your audience, and how we can actually help you make sure that your voice is yourself and that you don't sound like James Hicks
Man, I
or you
love
don't
that.
sound like Sharon
Yeah.
Jones, right? So the concepts and ideas that we focus in on is very simple. Understanding where you currently are, where it is that you want to go, and then we help you focus in on that gap analysis because that's where the real work is.
And having that insight, I just have to imagine that the 2 decades in retail leadership, right? That's got to
Come on,
be a
man.
huge, you know, just positive asset, positive benefit to you now transitioning into this content creation world where, again, you were out there leading Fortune 500 companies, things of that nature, and having those conversations at the Targets, at the Walmarts, at the whomever, and things of that nature, and talking about customer relations, customer expectations, things like that. Talking about voice, talking about
Mm,
messaging, and things of that nature. Now
mm.
bringing that down into an individual's. See, man, listen, we're gonna start preaching here, right? But I could
Come
just
on,
see
man. Come
where
on.
now it really makes sense, and I hope the audience is seeing. Again, where this dynamic of retail leadership versus podcasting versus content creation, and now where it's intersecting, that 2 decades of experience is coming in, and again, setting you up as that thought leader, as that subject matter expert,
A
as that
hundred
person they need
percent.
to reach out to. Man, put me on the payroll.
A
Put
100%, man.
put me
I'm
on the
trying to tell
payroll.
you right there. Where it go? Where
Ooh
is it at?
wait.
There you go.
There he go. I knew I
There it
knew
is.
I knew it was coming. I knew there was gonna be some sound triggers coming. I knew it, boy. Man, messing around with them buttons. All right, but listen,
Yeah.
two
Listen to
decades of
me.
transferable skills, man. Learn what you learn and hone it and share it. Don't be selfish and just keep that in your back pocket. Definitely take advantage of that and find these new opportunities in life, which is
Yeah,
what you're
yeah.
doing.
Yeah, you got to, right?
Yeah.
I say this, and we were talking about this off stage, right? And where I firmly believe, and I'll say this, and I won't even blink when I say it, and I firmly believe that retail leaders are the best leaders of the world.
Mm, mm,
If
mm.
we're working on the premise and the definition that leadership is influence, the idea that once again you have to influence somebody's perspective and decision and move them from where they are to where they need to be. The other aspect of why I say that retail leaders are the best leaders of the world, because I think sometimes we get the idea of leadership the wrong way. We feel that as a leader, you are leading people understandably, right?
Hmm.
But you have to understand the first part of that is that people are allowing you to lead them. People
Okay,
don't
come
get
on.
that piece of it. People are allowing you to lead them. If you don't trust somebody, you're not going to be led by them. You're going to go begrudgingly, or you're going to do something that's completely different than what they're saying. But if they are allowing you to be led, for
Mm,
allowing you to lead them, that's a completely different perspective, and that's a completely different level of responsibility and relationship that you have. I have been in situations where I can stand my leader, couldn't stand them, and I didn't want to be led by them. And guess what I did? I moved to another company. I did whatever. But in those other situations, I said, "Oh, James, man, that dude got something. I'm gonna allow him. I didn't say that,
yeah.
but I'm gonna allow him to lead me in this direction." And so when you understand that as a leader, that people are allowing you to lead them, it takes on a completely different perspective. And so the everyday aspects of a retail leader are far more um, granular than almost any other industry relative to the decision making that needs to take place in real time. It is disruptive as a district regional vice president manager. I would come into a store, I would completely disrupt this store the entire day.
Yeah.
But guess what? They still had to produce. They still had to operate. They still had to make their dollars. They still had
Yeah.
to make payroll. They still had to make sure that the customers were taken care of. It didn't matter around my disruption. Didn't matter who it was in the building, didn't matter if it snowed outside, we still had to figure things out. And so the ability to learn and adapt on the fly quickly and then galvanize an entire team. Here's the other piece. People fail to realize this. People think when they walk in a retail store that a retail leader is like they're just managing thousands of dollars. These guys are managing billions of dollars,
Wow.
millions of dollars,
Yeah.
sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, these stores. And then when the higher you go, if you're a group manager, you're managing 2.5 billion, $3 billion of business.
Mm.
Get that. I don't think people understand that aspect. And so they think, oh my gosh, we're just exchanging, an Apple on an iPod or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
no, these people are running businesses, billion-dollar businesses, and they're making decisions on a dime, and they're galvanizing their entire teams around them. So that way they can actually fulfill the needs of the shareholders, but also for the members and also for the teams as well. So retail leaders, in my perspective,
They the
best leaders in
ones.
the
They
world.
the ones.
Best leaders in the
Okay,
world.
I tell you what. I'm gonna ask you a question because I did another stream earlier today with a leader, and I want to ask you a question about this. Kind of goes into kind of some statements that you were saying right there. But Equip Institute has brought up an interesting statement. These lessons
Mm,
apply in every area of our lives, especially business. Use them constantly and remain calm through all of the disruption. That's an excellent point right there, right? Remain calm through
yes.
all that disruption. Um,
Come on,
so,
man.
I had a lady on from the CEO of Flex HR earlier on,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
was telling her my concept of I can't motivate somebody else.
Mm,
And I don't know, if I'm a unicorn and other folks don't think this way or whatever, but talk to me about this, and then we'll get back into the content
yeah.
creation piece from a retail leadership perspective. Back to the story an example that you just left, right? An Apple leader, someone comes into a
Mhm.
retail environment, they're managing billions of dollars of business. They have to have the team still do their thing. I can't motivate you. You have to have that motivation within yourself. From my perspective, I can help lead, guide, direct, and provide foundational direction, but Worthy, you got to have the motivation yourself to show up for work every single day. When you do show up, you got to have the motivation, in my mind, within
Mm,
yourself to go and do your due diligence, do your job, do whatever it is that you are paid to do. Whatever your role is telling you
mm,
to do, and you clock in for that particular day. I say clock in, coming from thinking about it from a retail perspective.
yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, where's the onus? Is the onus on the leader to ensure that the employees are motivated, or is it the onus solely on the employee to ensure that
Mm,
when they commit to doing something that they say that they are going to
yeah.
show up for work for Worthy Retail You, that they are actually out there doing their job, doing their due diligence? And if they aren't fulfilling those requirements and aren't fulfilling those
Right.
needs, when do you cut bait?
Yeah. I think everything rises and falls on leadership. Um, I do feel like even though you may have a team that a person like yourself or a person that is they're not motivated, you can have two types of teams. You can have a compliant team or you can have a committed team.
Okay.
So what you're talking about relative to a person that's coming to work and they're just clocking in and you just want them to kind of do their job. That's a compliance person. That is a person that's going to give you pretty much the bare minimum. As a leader, I don't want that person on my team.
Mm,
And I honestly believe it begins with, and we teach this. I taught this, all my years. It begins with the assessment at the very beginning when you're doing the interview process. People don't realize that. They wait for that bad person to get on their team and they haven't done the upfront work to get the right person on their team. And if you can hear it in my voice, it pisses me off because I have
I hear you getting a
tried,
little excited.
I
Well, what man getting warm
because
over there? Come on now.
because yeah, man, because that was the one thing I would always teach my team. Like, dude, it is about the assessment of the talent.
Mm,
Like, oh my gosh, Steve, my team. Or they here's the other part too. They would inherit a team, right? I did a live stream. It was a really popular live stream. It was like just off the cuff on my coaching group, and it was talking about inheriting the team versus picking your team.
okay.
And the tendency is that they will inherit a team. So if you're taking over a new market, you didn't get a chance to pick that team. You inherited that team.
Hmm.
But here's the thing, they're your team. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if James was the leader. Day one, they are your team. And if they suck, that's okay. They're your team because at the end of the day, you are the leader. Now your job is to go in and assess and figure out and understand if you have that person that is compliant on your team, figure out what it is that may motivate them. If there's
Okay.
something that can motivate them, then you can figure that out. Because here's the key. It is all about WIFM in retail, and WIFM is what's in it for me.
What's in it for me? Go ahead,
What's
brother.
in it for me?
Okay.
When you can dial in to a person's WIFM
Yeah.
and hit that pain point, man, they will walk miles for you. They will do whatever it is that you ask them to do.
Mm.
But a lot of times, people don't want to take the time to find out that with them, and they just want they want to be in a position of leadership and say, "Dude, you're going to do this because I say so." Guess what? You're going to be your turnover is going to be high. You're going to have a team that's going to be in a compliance mode and they're not committed to you as a leader. And guess what happens if they're not committed to you as a leader? Your days are numbered, buddy.
All right, all right, all right.
Bruh, just the fact that you mentioned a statement that I do repeat a lot of time, even in my industry, in the high tech and the enterprise technology field with them, what's in it for me? Because anytime I go out on stage, and if I feel that I'm not going to bring value to the audience,
Come on,
to
man.
who's in the room, if they can't internalize it, if they can't find a way for them to either put more money in their pocket, sell more server storage, whatever networking. If they can't find a way to internalize and personalize the message, again, I'm not talking about. I'm not motivating them. I don't think. I'm just finding the value for in the conversation to the
Yeah,
audience, and if I can find that piece right there and get that aha moment, to get that point where tech troublemaker in the comments where Roy can actually say, I need to go out and buy these other storage arrays for my particular business, then
yeah.
there it is right there. I've done my due diligence and I've done my job of actually connecting with the audience. So I love that. I really love
And,
that. Roy, we
and
appreciate you for
guess
being here, man.
guess what? Everything that we talked about, guess where else that applies? It applies to podcasting.
There it
It
is.
applies to content creation. It applies to your show, my show, Roy's show, everybody's show. That whole with them, like, why would you do a show if you don't care about what's in it for the person that's on the other side of this
Yes,
camera?
sir. Yes, sir.
If it's
There. Boy, see, okay,
come on,
I'm
go
throwing
ahead,
all
man.
the. I'm just throwing all the
Go ahead,
notes
man.
away. No, I don't
No,
have.
we're
I'm gonna throw
good.
this one comment up, and then I'm just throwing all the notes away because we really going into some things right now. I love it right here. Equip Institute again is coming with some heaters right here. A leader
Mm,
can teach you to dribble a ball. You
mm.
have to bring the willingness, drive, and the work ethic with you. I share this with the young consultants at the beginning of their journey. And Equip Institute, they come in with you, this part of your squad. We got some
I
good folks
don't
coming into the
know.
comments.
No,
We got
I
some good folks
appreciate that.
coming in here,
I
dropping some
appreciate that.
knowledge, man. I'm
That's
gonna have
good
to have you
stuff,
on
man.
every week.
Come on, man. Come on, man. I'm gonna
Man,
bring it. I'm
okay.
gonna bring it every week.
I'm mad at you. I'm mad at you. So here we are, man. It's December. What is it? The 15th of December.
Yeah,
We're about to shut down 2022. We've all, again, from the entrepreneurial, from the content creation perspective, from the business owner perspective, we've all done a lot or tried to
yeah,
do a lot within this past year. Not even going to go back any further now, but let's just think of all of the activity that
yeah,
you've done over this particular year, and what are some key takeaways, that wins that you saw worked within 2022, that you say, you know what, these processes, these skills, these attributes of everything that makes up Steve Worthy from a business perspective that you're going to take into the new year. What worked and what didn't work? What are you going to
yeah,
drop and leave to decide?
yeah. One of the things we do is that at the beginning of every year we pick a word,
Mm,
and that word is really going to be what defines us and
yeah,
helps us be kind of that north star, if you will, for everything that we do. And this year was intentionality. And I believe it was a really good word for me to pick, and there is still going to be some measure of intentionality as I go into 2023. But everything that we tried to do was from an intentional standpoint, and we were able to, and also with the help of yourself and some really good people out there, Sherry Jones, I was really able to kind of one tap into my zone of genius. I think, and at least understanding that phrase a little bit more. I think the tendency is that we start talking about niching down. It's not so much niching down; it's understanding your zone, your zone of genius. Just because you can do something doesn't mean it necessarily need to. And so once I was able to kind of, I think, move away from
hold on,
certain
hold on, hold
things.
on. No,
Go
no,
ahead.
no, 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 no.
What?
Don't just no, no. You're not gonna just glaze over that right there. You're not just gonna come up in my house and just drop that in the middle of the floor and then walk out.
My bad. My bad.
I need that whole thing restated because I do not want that to be overshadowed and overlooked by the audience live and on the replay. Tell us again your word for the year.
Yeah.
Tell us again how you came up with that and why and how you're putting that into action. That man, that's some good stuff, folks. Go ahead and pull over if you're driving right now. Or you shouldn't be driving, watching YouTube anyway.
I
But
know
let's
that's
Steve,
right.
that's
That's right.
good, man.
That's
Let's talk
right.
about that.
Yeah, no, man. I think the word intentional and intentionality was the word, and it was really a washing away of all of the unnecessary things that
Mm,
things that you thought that you can do just because you can do them doesn't mean that you necessarily should.
wow.
And that idea or phrase, if you will, is like kind of your zone of genius. What are the things that you're really truly good at, and that you can zone in on, and that you can leverage for the betterment of not just your own sanity and that settlement. And once again, we're going to go back to that word, the settling of who you are. And I don't mean settling in the context of like, well, I'm just going to, give up and just do this. No, I mean, like, I am settled in who I am. I am settled in what I want to stand for. I am settled in the direction that I want to go. And once I'm settled in that, and in that, nothing should be able to move me. So understanding that if you're going to be intentional about something, you have to figure out those things that just because you can do them doesn't necessarily mean that you should do them.
Wow. That speaks volumes to any field of study, professional and personal as well, right? So I hope folks are catching what you're putting down, man, because again, bringing it into what's immediate right now, podcasting, content creation, things of that nature. Just because you can talk about a specific niche, just because you can talk about a specific topic or subject matter, probably doesn't make sense. It might not make sense if unless that's the audience you're trying to reach. I doubt it, right? Because more than likely you're telling folks to lock in and grow a particular audience that likes a specialized subset of information as opposed to trying to be the catch all uh, 8 o'clock news, right? And with all the different subject matter, you get what I'm saying? You're telling
Yeah,
folks that if it doesn't make sense, I mean, you can't go out there and try to boil the ocean. You can't go out there and try to do every single
can't.
thing just because you think you can. You can't go buy everything on Amazon just because you got a couple of dollars in your pocket and you know it'll show up tomorrow. You don't need that.
Yeah. And you haven't even developed like for you and I, right? We get, we are recovering gas,
Recovering, brother. Recovering.
recovering, right? Gear Acquisition Syndromes
Yeah,
Anonymous, right? But we, a lot of
founding
times,
members right here, boy.
compounding members, we are true, very, very much so, man. But the we haven't even you haven't even so it's relating this to gear.
Mm,
You haven't even figured out your use case for your current gear, and
wow.
then now you're on to the next.
You
Same
ain't
thing
learn
with
how to
your
use it or nothing, boy. You know nothing
nothing.
about white balance and boy.
No
Okay,
white balance, nothing.
I'm talking bad about folks.
No,
Okay,
It's just the truth, man. But it's the same thing about your content.
yeah.
The same thing about your content pillars. Like you haven't even developed a use case and an understanding of what it is that you want to talk about before you're on to the next thing. We call that the shiny object syndrome, right?
Mm.
We got a podcast, a worthy leadership episode about that. Go check it out. Anyway, but because it's so true. We want to. It's the next shiny object concept. You know, even with podcasting, and I'm just going to say this, right? Because on January 4th, we have James Critland on. We
Mm.
had him on last year. So James Critland is like he's the person that, all the big all the big podcast companies go to get like the pulse of the podcast industry. And so I'm
Okay.
very fortunate to actually have him on my show. And we're going to be talking about the top seven, like his top seven predictions for podcasting in 2023. And one of my own predictions is that I feel even though it's going to be growing, I think there's still going to be a reduction in podcasting. And what I mean by that is that people are going to start to realize that podcasting is work. And
Yeah.
they're going to they're going to initially just get out there and want to do a podcast. and they're going to realize it's work. But the other thing is that I really feel that a lot of people are going to fall off is because they're trying to do too much. If you're a YouTuber and your focus is on gear, right? And all the aspects of gear, but then now you're teaching people, how to podcast. And you don't even have a podcast yourself, but
Mm,
everybody's just because everybody's talking about podcasting, but your channel is focused on gear. You see what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like I get it. I get it. It's hot and everyone wants to talk about it. But for me, if I'm true to what I'm called to do, then that's what I'm going to be called to do. I don't want to get on stuff just because it's hot and it's there for a second.
You don't
I
want
think
that divided house, huh? Okay. Yeah.
that's if I can go back to like the question that you asked me, that's probably number 2, is that I want our stuff to be super unique, but it's still going to be relevant. It's still going to be impactful for our audience. Like we're going to be talking about gear, right? Because it's a podcast station for podcasters live, right? But we're going to be talking about it in a completely different fashion than what you see out there. And so I think that's the other thing that we've been learning this year is how to really create our own voice
Okay.
around podcasters live. We did that with our actual audio podcast. Our audio podcast is completely different. Um, our podcasters live audio podcast is completely different than our retail leadership podcast. Our podcasters live podcast is it's a narrative podcast, and it's something completely different than and I won't say anything out there, but speaking about podcasting, it's a completely different perspective. So
Okay. You know what?
that's
Yeah.
the other
All right.
piece. That's
I subscribe to both of them and didn't realize, and I should have known, but again, that was a conscious exercise on your piece to make the delivery of Worthy Retail You versus Podcasters Live different in terms of reception because it's yeah right okay two different
100%.
audiences so yeah the way that you deliver it is different okay so knowing
100%.
knowing now that that's a
100%.
conscious activity makes a lot of sense for me okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, we're super intentional about how we want to deliver our message
Mm,
and how it resonates with people. So that's probably number 2, and I don't know. Number 3 is is more along the lines of kind of like back office preparation. I don't.
mm,
Sharon and I were going back and forth about this idea. Maybe I want to get your perspective on this too because we were struggling with the concept of working in your business and on your business,
ooh,
right? Because you hear that a lot,
ooh.
and we even looked it up, right? But I wanted to get your perspective on that too. Maybe here I am, I can't help it. I got to ask you a question, but um, I think that's one of the things that we're still trying to get after, figure out is like, am I working in my business or on my business? And so I'm going to ask that question to you. What are your thoughts around
Yeah,
those two different concepts?
I understand the delineation but I also understand that there's value in both. I
100%.
understand that there can be challenge for the owner, founder, CEO, whatever title you put on yourself, if you're detrimental to the business at hand, and if you are slowing down the mission statement of the company by being so hands-on with the tactical
Mm,
stuff and not
mm,
being focused on the strategic stuff, that's where you need to reassess and realign your involvement, right? So if I'm slowing down momentum for the company because I feel that I have to be a part of every single decision, and then there's a challenge, there's an issue. That actually means that I don't have the foundation, I don't have the standard operating procedures, I don't have the employee manual, I don't have whatever already laid out, right? So that means I need to step back and actually go out and write those pieces of context such that the business can be more solid. If I feel that I have to be on every single live stream, if I feel that I have to be in every single podcast or audio creation, whatever the case may be, that could also be a detriment and slow down the machine. I don't want to slow down the machine. I want to keep the machine
mhm,
moving as seamlessly as possible. And that really is my idea of the goal of the leader. So if long answer short, if I'm slowing down the process by being part too much in either one of those
mm.
baskets, then I need to step out and refine the back of the house stuff, refine the
Yeah.
administrative piece first. But I see value in being part of both of those wheelhouses,
Hmm.
regardless of the size of the organization, right?
Correct.
Again, I
Correct.
mean, if you're $1,000 a year company or a $20 billion a year company, there's value in knowing what's going on behind the scenes as well. But it just the amount of involvement, if you are more detrimental to the growth of the business and the mission of the business, that's when you have to reevaluate your
Yeah.
involvement.
I'm laughing because I got my undergrad in accounting,
Yeah,
and I lasted probably about 30, no, I was even 30, no, it was probably about 5 months in accounting.
yeah,
And I hated it. I couldn't stand it. But here's the thing that I loved. What I learned about it was exactly what you're talking about. It's like how money works, and actually how businesses work. And so that that has actually helped me fundamentally, more so than I think, not just my overall career,
hmm,
but understanding the importance of working like in your business and getting those tactical pieces kind of set up. And I think that's kind of where I'm going with that third one is that tactical side of it, because I think if you don't have those things in place, those fundamentals, in place, then you really can't scale. You really can't grow.
exactly,
You're
exactly,
gonna have to kind of go back and actually redo those things first, and then the kind of and then the growth comes. So why don't you just go ahead and start doing those things? So that's what we're focused in on is how can I establish more of the tactical, interior SOP side of our business.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and then now, when 2023 comes, and we go after our word for 2023, then I don't have to worry about some of those pieces.
I love that. And so I'll even add on to that is don't get wrapped around the axle on those tactical pieces, right? Iterate
True.
fast.
Yeah.
Uh, there are a ton of tools out there to do um, SaaS-based operations, to do the CRMs, to do document repositories, just to do all of that stuff. Don't get wrapped around trying to test every single one of them out. And listen, I'm pointing one finger at you, three fingers back at me as well, right?
Yeah.
Don't go out there and try Asana and Trello and ClickUp
Oh
and
no.
Notion, right? Right. Don't get wrapped into that piece. Find a tool that works. If that's what we're talking about, find tools and processes and things of that work. Learn it and move on, as opposed to, again, wrapping yourself around an axle and feeling that you have to know every single thing that's coming out, because especially in this world of IT, that there's something coming out every single week,
Oh,
right? And
dude.
you can be stuck in neutral and not go anywhere and miss an opportunity even before you even raise your head, because you're still trying to figure out, well, I can get ClickUp for $12 a month, but I can get Notion for $9.99. This right. If you wrap
Yeah.
yourself around
Yeah.
that, and it's kind of
Oh
like even
yeah.
what Equip Institute was saying, make it plain. Just be plain. Get out of your own way. I say that a lot of times as well, but don't get wrapped around that piece.
No.
Continue to just keep your head above water and be strategic, but get that tactical stuff lined up as well. So,
Yeah.
man,
100%.
all right, man. Listen, you came here with some things you learned in 2022. You got
Yeah,
you
man.
got you got some good insight. You're gonna take some of that stuff with you in 2023. But let's get into just tell me one specific thing that you are going to launch. So again, December 15th right now. When the clock strikes midnight 2023, are you going to be underneath the ball in New York? I don't know what you're going to be doing, but but when the first day of business kicks in 2023, what can people expect from Ask Steve Worthy, Podcasters Live, Worthy
Yeah.
Retail You, that they haven't seen yet, right? That we've seen some amazing stuff already, but come on, drop some news. Let's go NDA. Let's go with a non-disclosure. Tell the folks what they can expect. What kind of hotness you
You
dropping?
know what?
Come on now.
So I'll start with. I'm glad you said how you presented it. What's the stuff that people haven't seen? With Worthy Retail You or Podcasters Live, and so I'll start with our word. Our word for 2023 is greater. It's greater, and And what that means for us is everything that we put our hands to has a purpose, but it's going to be filled with being helping other people be great, helping other people kind of reach their milestones. Everything that we put our hands to is going to be greater. It is going to have a sense of um, empowerment. It is going to have a sense of power. It is going to have a sense of purpose. And there's still a matter of intentionality to that. So, all the little things that we have done, whether it's our live streaming, our interviews, our content, all of that stuff, greater in the volume that we're going to be putting out content. I just found an amazing um, uh, video guy uh, over. You're gonna laugh at me, but he's over in Nepal, and he's
Okay.
amazing. And he's amazing, young guy. He's hungry. He's gonna get after it for me, and so we're trying to just be greater in all aspects of our business. And with that will come, of course, the financial greaterness, the monetizations, all of
Mm.
those pieces, right? So if we focus in on that, I think ideally, and I know more so than anything, all those other pieces will fall into place. Relative to something that from a greater standpoint, we will be launching our book, How to Beat in Podcaster Syndrome: Seven Proven Strategies to Help You Overcome um, Imposter Syndrome and podcast your way to success. We will be launching that first quarter of 2023. I'm excited about that. Um, Within the next couple of weeks, you'll probably hear more about us having and trying to get beta readers for the book. So that way we can actually get more people reading the book, providing Amazon reviews and all of that stuff for us. We're just doing some rewrites, but that's been something that I had to put on the back burner because, as you know, I did a massive transition and move and life changing things. From Atlanta from Maryland to down here, and now it's just a matter of going after things that are greater. So the book is going to be massive, and then we're focusing in on from a retail leadership standpoint. We have a new concept, and we'll be talking more about this too. It's called Make a Move. And
Mm.
the idea is to help retail leaders understand when it's time for them to make a move up within the organization, a move on, or a move out of that organization.
Okay. Okay.
Because we want to provide a very safe space for retail leaders so that way they can actually kind of let their hair down so we can help them become the best leaders that they possibly can. Because within retail, the world, it seems like it's so big, but it's very small and they
Mm.
need a safe space to talk about where they currently are within their journey. And the goal is to help them once again decide whether they need to make a move up, on, or out. I've done all three. And so I have the experience to be able to talk them through that process and also help them kind of find their own way as well. So those are two major pieces that we're excited about. The podcast is live. We're launching our second season, coming up from a live stream standpoint. You're going to be part of kind of the reunion show that's going to be taking place in January, and we're going after a different level of audience. Excuse me, level of audience.
Mm.
We're going to be focused on global.
Okay.
From a podcaster's live standpoint, we are not just going to be here in the States. We are having a global bent to podcasters live. We're very big in the Philippines and the UK, which is crazy, which is funny. So we are going to be leveraging that. We're going to be trying to move into Africa, move over to Australia. So we are really thinking global in every aspect of our content and what we do. So I guess those are three big things that we got going on for
What I love about
2023, man.
that is that you just spoke it all into existence. Right. I know you've
Amen.
already written it down, but when you speak it into existence, it carries just a little bit extra weight for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was one thing that you mentioned, and that is we can't do. You're talking about letting your hair down. Two bald brothers here on this podcast, and you talking about letting hair down.
Letting my hair down,
Come
man.
on,
I just, yeah,
there's not much that we can do as it relates to that piece. But
there isn't. There isn't.
one final question, and this is the most important question of the night.
Mm, mm.
Who you got? Who you got? France or Argentina?
Oh, good question. Good
Huh?
question. That
Come
is
on,
a good
brother.
question. That
Because I
is a
know
good
you are a
question.
footballer. So
I
who
am.
you who
I
you with?
am. I am. Oh man. Oh,
Come on now.
my
Come on.
my my. Who you with? My head. My
Yeah.
head. No, excuse me. My heart is saying France, but
Mm,
my head is saying Argentina. Um, I'm saying Argentina in the context is that they want to win it for Messi.
yeah.
They are going to try whatever they possibly can to get that World Cup for Messi because it's going to be a wrap for him after this because
Yeah.
he's older, which 31 or 32 years old in football terms is old, which is crazy. But they're going to try whatever they possibly can to win it. I love how France plays. They're always on the front foot. They're very skilled, they're tactical, but Argentina is shifty. They're feisty. They don't allow you any time on the ball, and they're going to get after France, and they're going to do whatever they can to win that game for Argentina. So my
Boy.
heart is saying France, but my head is saying Argentina. So I'm going to go
All
with my
right.
head, man.
There it is, man. I'm bringing you on Team No Sleep after the final to have that discussion because I could tell you had a little passion and just your explanation right there. The man knows his football, folks. That's
Yeah,
Steve Worthy right there. If you don't know, hopefully now you know. Go out and Google this man. Check him out on LinkedIn. He's everywhere. I will put links to his three main websites: AskSteveWorthy.com, Podcasters Live, and Worthy Retail U in the description so you have that context. But listen, man, you're doing it right,
thanks, man.
and
Appreciate you,
the
man.
fact that again I've seen some of the elevation, some of the growth, some of just the trajectory. I've seen the journey, and
Mm,
you've
mm,
always stayed locked in on what matters to you, right? You haven't deviated, right? You've always said I'm going to do these two things. I'm gonna
mm.
talk to retail leaders and I'm gonna talk about podcasting and all the other shiny things that come and hit us in the face. You give them the Heisman. No, that's not what we do. We gonna stay locked in right here. So kudos to you for that. Want to give you those flowers, man. I wish you nothing but success in the coming year. And if I don't talk to you before then, man, have a great holiday, brother.
Thank you, man. I appreciate always, man, coming on your show and just, us being on different shows together too,
Yeah.
which is always fun, man. Just appreciate you as a peer, as a friend. Your perspective on leadership and this whole live streaming game and just business in general. So love the fact that I can text you and even though you're already all the way on the left coast, which is crazy because I typically don't deal with people on the left coast, but you know what I'm saying, you're okay.
My family from Virginia. Okay,
Okay,
that
there
counts. I,
okay,
I
all
think
right,
that
all right.
is what helps,
That's
right?
what it is.
I
That's
still
that
got.
East
I'm
Coast.
country still, right?
I
All
That's the
right,
East Coast in you. That's the East Coast in you. I
that's
get
it.
it. I get it. I
All right,
appreciate you,
folks.
man.
Listen, hey, appreciate you, man. If you guys found value in this, please let us know. Please share it. If you did not find value, let me know so I can continue to evolve and continue to get better and continue to serve the community. That being said, y'all be good. Take care of yourself. We out.
Peace.